Welcome to Reformed Thinking. I'm your host, and I'm really glad you're here with us.
It's good to be here.
We're back doing what we love to do, which is taking a stack of serious theological sources, sermons, essays, some exegetical notes, and just trying to extract the core doctrines.
And not just the doctrines, but the practical applications for the Christian life. We want to get past the surface.
Exactly, to really understand the mechanics of the text. And today we are tackling a text that is... it's difficult.
It's terrifying. I think that's the right word for it.
It really is. We're in Genesis 19, looking at verses 1 through 11. This is the story of Sodom. And I think for a lot of people, even if you didn't grow up in the church, you know the punchline.
Fire and brimstone.
Right. Or you know this text because it's always getting bogged down in some cultural controversy. But looking at the sources we have today, the goal isn't just to tell a horror story.
No, not at all. The goal is to view this narrative through the, let's say, the specific lens of Reformed theology. And we have some really detailed analyses here that focus on Lot's position in Sodom and the specific nature of the city's sin. And when you look at it that way, the central tension isn't just a city getting wiped out.
What is it then?
It's about the contrast between the absolute untouchable holiness of God and the total depravity of man.
That phrase, total depravity, it just kept coming up again and again in my reading. It's not a light topic.
Yeah.
So let's lay out our mission for this deep dive. We're looking to examine the danger of spiritual compromise, the reality that divine judgment is a real thing.
And the absolute necessity of what theologians call monergistic rescue.
Monergistic rescue. Okay, that's a critical term. So what does that mean?
It's the idea that God alone saves.
Yeah.
It's a one-way action. As we're going to see, I mean, if it were up to the human beings in this story, nobody would get out alive.
All right, so let's get into it. The sources make a really big point that you can't understand Genesis 19 unless you just came from Genesis 18.
It's a study in contrasts. A huge visual and spiritual shift happens when you just turn the page.
So set the scene for us. What's happening in Genesis 18?
Okay, so in chapter 18, we're with Abraham. And where is he? He's sitting at the door of his tent. It's the heat of the day, so the lighting is bright. Everything's out in the open.
And he has this really warm, intimate fellowship with the Lord.
Exactly. And our sources point out that the tent itself is a symbol. It's a symbol of the pilgrim life. Abraham is just passing through. He's holding the world loosely.
Right, he's mobile.
Yeah.
He's ready to pack up and move if God says move.
Yeah.
But then we get to chapter 19.
And the whole atmosphere just changes. It's like a different movie. Now we're with Lot, Abraham's nephew.
And it's not the heat of the day anymore.
No, it's evening. It's twilight. The shadows are getting long. And he's not in a tent. The text says Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom.
Now, to a modern reader, sitting in the gate sounds like he's just, hanging out by the front door, maybe people watching.
Right, but our sources are emphatic about this. This detail is crucial.
So what does it actually mean in the ancient Near East?
The city gate wasn't just an entryway. It was the center of everything. It was like City Hall, the courthouse, and the stock exchange all rolled into one.
Wow.
It was the center of civic authority, of commerce, of legal judgment. So if you are sitting in the gate, you are not a visitor. You are not just a resident.
You're a magistrate, an elder. You have status.
That's it. Lot has climbed the social ladder. He's not just a guy living in the city. He's helping to run the city.
And this is where that trajectory you mentioned comes in.
Yes. If we trace his movement, remember back in Genesis 13, he just looked at the plains of Jordan because they looked fertile.
He saw an opportunity.
Then the text says he pitched his tent towards Sodom. He was getting closer. He was leaning in. And now, here in Genesis 19, he's sitting in the gate.
He went from looking to leaning to leading. It was a slow fade.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the sources argue that this is a picture of the illusion of influence. Lot is the prototype of the compromised believer.
He probably thought he was doing a good thing.
I think he absolutely convinced himself of that. He thought he could engage the culture, maybe influence it from the inside. If I just get a seat at the table, I can curb some of the wickedness. He likely told himself he was there to redeem the city.
But the reality was the complete opposite.
Completely. The sources are pretty blunt here. They say that instead of Lot redeeming the city absorbed him. He traded the pilgrim's tent for the citizen's seat.
And we'll see later that when he actually tries to use that supposed influence, it just blows up in his face.
They mock him for it. He has zero moral authority left. It's a sobering thought for anyone, really, who thinks they can get cozy with the world to change it.
So Lot is at the gate. It's twilight. And these two visitors arise. They're angels, but they look like men.
And Lot's reaction is fascinating. The notes we have really dig into the specific Hebrew verbs used here.
What does the text say?
It says he rose, he bowed, and he pressed them to come with him. Physically, it looks a lot like Abraham's welcome back in chapter 18.
But the motivation's different.
Totally different spiritually. Abraham's welcome was driven by joy and open fellowship. Lot's welcome is driven by fear. It's pure anxiety.
He knows what the city is capable of.
He knows exactly what it is, and there's a little test here. Lot invites them to his house, but the angels say, no, we'll spend the night in the town square.
Which, in a normal, healthy city, would be fine. Safe, even.
Right. The town square is supposed to be the center of community life. But Lot knows that in Sodom, the town square is a hunting ground. It's a place of extreme peril.
So that's why he insists.
That's why the text says he pressed them strongly. The Hebrew word there is patsar, and it implies force. He is practically dragging them to his house.
Because he knows if they stay out there, they won't make it through the night.
He knows it. And this brings up a really sharp theological point from our sources. Lot has built what they call a bunker of private morality.
A bunker. I like that.
He has his house, and he keeps it locked up tight. He thinks he can have this little island of righteousness inside this battlefield of public depravity. He's deluding himself.
He really thinks he can keep the two separate.
He thinks he can be a leader in the gate during the day, lock his door at night, and everything will be fine. That's the compromise.
But as we're about to see, you can't keep the city out forever.
The walls are always thinner than you think.
So let's get to that confrontation. The visitors are in the house. Lot has made them a meal. He shut the door.
Mm-hmm.
And then, verse 4, this is the scene that really defines the city.
Mm-hmm.
The text says, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man, surrounded the house.
The language there is so intentional. Moses, the author, is just piling phrase upon phrase to make sure we do not miss the scope of this. Men of the city, then men of Sodom, young and old, from every quarter to the last man.
It's suffocating. It feels like a horror movie where the zombies are surrounding the last safe house.
It is suffocating, and it completely refutes the idea that this was just a rogue gang, a few bad guys.
No, this is the entire society.
This is where that doctrine of total depravity comes right into focus. The corruption had metastasized. It crossed generations, young and old. It crossed geography from every quarter. The sin was communal.
And it was celebrated.
Yes, they're not hiding. They are surrounding the house. Evil doesn't just exist in Sodom, it encircles. It actively targets any boundary of righteousness.
Now, we have to talk about the demand they make. Verse 5, bring them out to us that we may know them.
Right.
I know there are some modern interpretations that try to soften this. They'll say Sodom's sin was just, being inhospitable. They just didn't like strangers.
Our sources take a very, very firm stand against that revisionist reading. They argue you just have to look at the text honestly.
So let's do that. What does the language tell us?
The Hebrew word is yada, to know. And yes, in some contexts, that can mean intellectual knowledge. But in this context,
a mob at night surrounding a house.
And then you couple that with Lot's later horrific offer of his own daughters who have not known a man. The linguistic evidence is overwhelming. It clearly points to sexual violence.
It's predatory.
It is predatory, it's coercive, and it's public. The source links this to Judges 19, that awful story of the outrage at Gibeah, where the exact same phrasing is used to describe a violent assault.
So this is not just private desire happening behind closed doors.
No. This is a mob demanding to violate the sacred boundary of the home. That's a critical distinction. It's not just that they are sinners. It's that they are forcing their sin on others. They demand participation.
Bring them out to us. It's a demand for access.
That's the terrifying nature of a culture that's been completely given over to its depravity.
So Lot is trapped. He has the angels inside, the mob outside.
Yeah.
And this leads us to what our outline calls the failed mediator.
It's just tragic to watch unfold. Lot steps out. He shuts the door behind him, which is a key detail.
He puts himself in between.
He does. In a way, that's brave. But then he opens his mouth, and the first thing he does is call the mob my brothers.
My brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Oof, that stings.
It reveals everything, doesn't it? It shows his entanglement. He thinks he has a relationship with them, that he's one of them. He tries to use appeasement to calm them down.
And then he makes the offer that just makes every reader of the Bible cringe.
Verse 8. He offers his 2 virgin daughters to the crowd. It's horrifying.
And the sources are clear on this, right? The Bible's reporting this, not endorsing it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is described as the ethical nadir. the absolute lowest point of the compromised believer.
What could possibly lead him to do that?
It illustrates the total bankruptcy of pragmatism. Pragmatism is the philosophy that says the end justifies the means. Lot thinks, okay, my primary duty is to protect my guests. And that's true, that's part of ancient hospitality.
But his method is just.
It's abominable. He tries to fulfill that duty by sacrificing the weaker, his own children, to appease the stronger, which is the mob. He's throwing his daughters to the wolves to try and buy himself some peace.
Wow. And the source makes a really sharp application here for us today.
It does. It's a very stinging question, it asks. How often do modern believers sacrifice their children's spiritual purity for the sake of social acceptance?
That's a heavy question.
It is. We might not be pushing them out the physical door to a mob, but are we sacrificing them on the altar of social adjustment in a culture that is hostile to God?
And what's so tragic is that Lot's offer, it doesn't even work. The mob doesn't take the deal.
No, they reject it instantly, and their response just strips away all of Lot's illusions about his status in the city. Verse 9, this fellow came to sojourn, and he has become the judge.
So they throw his history right back in his face.
The irony is just devastating. Lot sat in the gate. He thought he was a judge, an insider. But the moment he tries to draw even a warped moral line, the world reminds him, you don't belong here, you're an outsider, and you have no authority.
One of our sources has a line, the world despises the compromised Christian.
That's a deep insight, and it's true. The world doesn't respect Lot for meeting them halfway. They see the hypocrisy, and they hate him for it. And look how it escalates.
They turn on him.
They say, now we will deal worse with you than with them. Appeasement always fails. It just invites more aggression. The mob presses against Lot himself to break the door down.
So he's done. He's exhausted. His arguments have failed. His horrific bribe was rejected. And now he is physically about to be crushed.
And that brings us to the pivot point of the whole story.
Yeah.
Section 4, divine intervention.
Verse 10. The men reached out their hands and brought Lot into the house with them and shut the door.
I love that image. It's so active. They don't just open the door for him. They reach out and pluck him out of the chaos.
This is that term you used earlier, monergistic salvation.
This is the definition of it. Mono, one. Ergon, work. A one-way work. Lot did not save himself. He didn't even have the strength to open the door to safety. He was failing. He was being crushed.
So salvation was entirely an act of God's grace.
Pulling him in against the chaos, against his own failure, he was literally pulled through the door.
And then they shut the door.
And that's another key phrase. The sources connect this right back to Noah's Ark, where the text says God shut him in. It's a divine boundary. God is the one who draws the line between judgment and mercy.
So Lot is safe inside, but the action outside is just as intense. Verse 11 says the angel struck the men with blindness.
But it's not just ordinary blindness. The Hebrew word is sanvarim. It implies a dazzling confusion, a complete disorientation. It's the same rare word used when the prophet Elisha strikes the entire Syrian army blind.
So this is a supernatural event.
Oh, yes. And it serves a dual purpose. On one hand, it's a defensive measure. It protects Lot and the occupants of the house.
But it's also a judicial act.
It's a judgment. It's a punishment. And this is where the story gets really, really strange.
Because you would think if a whole mob of people suddenly went blind, they'd panic. They'd scream, they'd run away, they'd scatter.
Right. But that's not what they do. The text says they wearied themselves to find the door.
That is maybe the most chilling detail in the entire chapter.
I think it is. They are blind. They have been supernaturally judged. And yet they don't stop. They don't repent. They don't flee. They continue groping for the door to commit the very sin they came to commit.
They're like zombies, just mindlessly pursuing the object of their desire.
It's a perfect picture of what theologians call judicial hardening or reprobation. It shows us that sin is a form of bondage.
And enslavement.
Yes. Even when judged, even when blinded, the unregenerate heart is so enslaved that it cannot stop sinning. They are exhausted not by repentance, but by their furious pursuit of evil. They literally wear themselves out trying to break into a house they can no longer even see.
That is a terrifying picture of the human condition apart from grace.
It is, and it just demolishes the idea that people just need a sign from God and then they'll repent. These men got a sign, instant supernatural blindness, and they just kept on sinning.
So we've walked through the narrative. Let's do what we promised at the start and synthesize this. How do we connect this to the bigger picture, specifically to Christ? Because Lot, I mean, he's not exactly a hero in this story.
No, not at all. The New Testament in 2 Peter calls him a righteous man, But in this text, he's presented as a failed mediator. Just think about it. He pleads, he bargains, he compromises.
And he saves no one?
He can't even save himself. He has to be physically rescued. So Lot represents the absolute failure of any human mediation.
Which points us toward
Christ, the true mediator. Jesus doesn't offer a sinful bargain to the mob. He doesn't offer his children. He offers himself. He offers his own perfect righteousness.
And that door imagery is so strong here, too.
It's unavoidable. Jesus says in John 10, I am the door. For the believer, for the sheep, the door is open for pasture and safety.
But there's another side to that.
There is. We also have that warning in Luke 13, where the master of the house gets up and shuts the door, and those outside are left knocking in vain.
So shut door means safety for the one who was pulled in, but it means judgment for the one who was locked out.
And we just have to say it again. Salvation is of the Lord. Why was Lot saved? Was it because he was so bold?
No.
Was it because he was so clever and wise?
Definitely not.
He was saved because, as the text says later, God remembered Abraham, and because of God's own sovereign choice to rescue him. The angels were sent on a mission of destruction, yet their first word is escape. That command is empowered by grace.
This brings us to the so what section, the application. Our sources break this down into head, heart, and hands.
A great framework.
Let's start with the head, what we need to believe coming out of this text.
First, we have to accept the twin doctrines of God's absolute holiness and man's total depravity. We have to reject the modern sentimental idea that God just kind of tolerates sin or that sin is just a mistake.
Genesis 19 shows us that sin is predatory and God's response to it is holy judgment.
And second, for the head, we have to believe that salvation is God's grip on us, not our grip on him.
Amen to that. If it depended on our grip, we'd all be like Lot, just lingering in the gate.
We would.
Okay, moving to the heart, our affections. The source material references 2 Peter again. It says that Lot was vexed or tormented day after day by the lawless deeds he saw around him.
And that's really the diagnostic question for our own hearts, isn't it? Are we vexed? Does the wickedness of our culture, the depravity we see, does it actually grieve us?
Or have we become desensitized?
Exactly. Have we sat in the gate so long that we just shrug at it? We need to cultivate a holy grief over the state of our culture rather than just a comfortable assimilation into it.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Because we all want to fit in. We don't want to be the weirdos.
But the cost of fitting in, as Lot shows us so clearly, is the loss of your soul's peace and, eventually, all of your moral authority.
So finally, the hands action. What do? The source gives 3 really punchy commands here. Flee the gate, fortify the house, and stop negotiating.
Flee the gate. That means we have to identify the areas in our own lives where we are seeking status or influence or comfort in a system that is fundamentally hostile to God. Where are we trying to be magistrates in Sodom? We need to step back from that.
And fortify the house.
That means protecting the home from cultural invasion. This goes right back to that parenting point. We cannot sacrifice our children to social adjustment. We have to have real solid boundaries.
And the last one, stop negotiating.
There is no middle ground between the fire of judgment and the safety of the mountain. Lot tried to find a middle ground. He tried to be a brother to the mob and a host to the angels at the same time.
And it was a disaster.
It can't be done. We have to stop trying to negotiate a peace treaty with sin, both in our culture and in our own hearts.
It's a call to be distinct, a call to be separate.
It's a call to be holy because he is holy.
This has been a heavy, deep dive, but a really necessary one. As we wrap up, I just want to go back to that central image of the shut door.
It really is the final word of this passage. Safety for the one who was pulled in, judgment for the one who was locked out.
And here's the final provocative thought our sources leave us with. It's a bit haunting. We are all naturally like Lot. We linger. We like the gate. We like the status and the comfort of the well-watered plain.
We would.
If salvation depended on our own initiative to get up and leave Sodom, we would all burn.
Every one of us.
So the question for you, the listener, is this. Are you wearying yourself, groping for a door that leads to nothing, like the men of Sodom? Or have you been pulled through the one true door of mercy by a hand that is not your own?
That is the only question that finally matters.
Thank you for joining us on Reformed Thinking. We will see you on the next deep dive.
Grace and peace.